Hello and welcome to Topical Top 10s here on the Football 365 show. I'm Mark Smith. I'm with Editor-in-Chief of Football365.com, Sarah Winterburn. Sarah Winterburn, what's our top 10 this week, please?
Our top 10, and this probably could have been about 20 after this weekend, but our top 10 surprises of the season.
The 20? It could have been 500.
47.
It could have been anything. It could have been any number. Pick a number.
Narrowed it down to 10.
Yes, thank you for doing that. An arduous process. Right, if you enjoy the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and press the little notification bell so you never miss a show going forward. This is this week's Topical Top 10s. Right, let's crack into it then, Sarah. At number 10, we've got Patrick Bamford scoring goals.
Who saw that coming? I can't keep saying who saw that coming on week because I'm going to say it 10 times. But nobody saw Patrick Bamford actually scoring goals coming. You know, it was a weakness, wasn't it, in Leeds' championship run. You know, he was always like, he needs 7 or 8 chances to score 1 goal. And actually that's what the stats say. You know, 8-9 shots for every goal. So what's he done? He's come to the Premier League where he has looked abject in every other performance in the Premier League, and he has scored 3 goals from 11 shots. This is, that's not Patrick Bamford numbers, is it?
No, but the difference, I suppose, is that he never had Bielsa before, and Bielsa absolutely trusts him, and he actually seems to build that attack around him. He's a strange one, isn't he, Bamford? Because he's never before been good enough for the Premier League, but this time round he's prolific in the top league, and he wasn't really last season. Very odd one. Right, number 9, we've got Carl Darlow. I love this one. Carl Darlow being the best goalkeeper in the Premier League.
And it's numbers, Matt. It's actually true. He's got the highest save percentage, not just by a little bit, but by a mile.
By miles,
his save percentage this season is nearly 80%, which is extraordinary. That's elite level goalkeeping. You know, I'm happy to call it now. You know, he should be in the England squad. I think there's massive woe in Newcastle, wasn't there, that Martin Dubravka was going to miss part of this season because he was so key in what they were doing last season in staying up easily. And there's a little bit of worry because no one had ever really seen Carl Darlow play. You know, he's been there for a few years, but, never really played. And it turns out he's absolutely brilliant. He was fantastic in that game against Tottenham, wasn't he? And he's done brilliant in the sense. You know, Newcastle are allowing as many shots as West Brom this season. That's just that. But obviously they're letting in far, far fewer. And part of that is Carl Darlow. Yeah,
I saw him when he played for Forest a few times. And he was good then, but I never thought it'd be as good as he is at the minute. Right, number 8. We've got Jorginho as Chelsea's top scorer. Given all of their transfers this summer, all their attacking transfers, they've got a defensive mid who does a little skip jump penalty as their top scorer.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? You know, this has obviously got 2 parts, hasn't it? It's Chelsea's new players not scoring any goals. You know, Timo Werner and Kai Havertz were kind of waiting for them to sort of burst into life at some point. Yeah. And, when you see the scoreline of 4-0 or whatever at the weekend, you think, oh, they must have got the score sheet. No
chance.
No, still not. And
not even really close either.
You know, everyone kind of expected Jorginho to leave. I mean, and he's still being linked with Arsenal right up to deadline day. And he's their top scorer, which seems absolutely madness to me.
Does it mean anything though? Does anything mean anything anymore?
It means absolutely sod all. And then nothing means anything anymore. It's all mental.
No, I mean, this weekend has made me question, not just football stuff, just made me question everything. Oh, what I'm looking at anymore. Number 7, Sarah, we've got Elneny.
I'm just surprised by him, man. I'm just amazed he's played. It just seems mad. You know, he went off on loan, and we sort of almost forgot he existed. And then you kind of wouldn't have been surprised to see a little snippet somewhere saying, Elneny's gone to Besiktas for £3 million, and you wouldn't have raised one eyebrow, never mind 2, would you? And yet here he is at the heart of the Arsenal midfield, and the heart of an Arsenal midfield that's functioning very well. To me, it's been quite astonishing.
Right, number 6, we've got free scoring Spurs and free scoring Jose.
Free scoring Jose, entertaining Jose. And this is particularly surprising after that first game against Everton when they were abject. They were awful, and they didn't look like a good score if they'd played for 7 hours. And yet since then, despite playing in all the competitions, that every 4 hours or something, they seem to be scoring a load of goals. And nobody scored more goals in the Premier League this season. They are the level top scorers. Nobody would have predicted that, particularly not after that Everton game. Obviously, Harry Kane, and this is before Gareth Bale comes in. This is only with 2/3 of supposedly that dream strike trio. So this, it could get better.
Yeah, absolutely could get better, and I think it might do. And then we'll have the sort of inevitable 3 months where they just look knackered and awful and are screaming for sleep. Right,
Turns
number
out they're playing
5.
60 games before Christmas.
Yeah, who knew? Who knew that was a bad idea? Number 5, we've got West Ham not being awful.
Well, not being an absolute car crash. And again, we're talking after that first game. That first game they got absolutely battered by Newcastle, who are themselves no good, apart from Carl Darlow, who's brilliant.
As we've been through.
And all the obits were being written at that point, weren't they? That this was another car crash of a season from West Ham. It was disastrous. The only thing that could save the club and the manager was the fact there's no fans in the ground, so we couldn't see the clearly massive protests that would have taken place. Then it turns out all needed to happen was David Moyes got COVID, went home, and they looked brilliant. And then
they seemed great with no fans and no manager in the ground.
Yeah. I mean, I think exactly. I think West Ham's one of those grounds, isn't it, where probably they're having the home fans is an advantage. It's probably a distinct disadvantage at the moment, and they're probably playing a little bit freer. And without David Moyes maybe on the sideline, it feels a bit freer as well. I'm astonished by that result against Leicester. Absolutely astonished. Leicester would have been on this list easily. Would have done this list last week. Now they're nowhere to be seen because actually that's total Brendan Rodgers that he got very cocky and then it all got cocked up completely.
That result would have been crazy, wouldn't it? Had we not had the next 2 games coming up.
Oh, it was like the 7th most interesting result of the weekend.
Yeah, it was. Right, number 4, and we've got another player who surely will be in the England squad, Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yes, in the England squad, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, I expected Everton to be quite good this season. I didn't expect them to be top of the league after 4 games, of course, but I did expect them to be good. You look at that, the signing of James was absolutely brilliant, an absolute godsend for us, I think. A fantastic player. Richarlison, I'm a massive fan of him anyway. And then bringing in Allen and Decore really, really, makes that midfield look, a top 6 midfield rather than a mid-table midfield. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I mean, who knew that was going to happen? No, presumably even he didn't.
Well, Marcel Brands knew. We've got to give him a lot of credit here, I think, because
he didn't buy another striker, didn't he? And a lot of people would have been saying
he could have gone and got Mandzukic.
Yeah, a lot of people would have been saying last year, this is the start of a decent Everton side. Needs cover in central defence. Needs a striker. You would always say they need a striker. They brought Moise Keane in, thinking that he was going to be the man. Naturally, I thought he was going to be really good. Turns out not. But Calvert-Lewin, who I've kind of always dismissed maybe as a bit, as a sort of nearly player, not quite player.
Yes.
Not quite got the full game. And yet this season he looks phenomenal. He's, fantastic finisher, great in the air, probably one of the
unbelievable
best
in the
ball,
air.
I think. Yeah.
That was Ronaldo-esque at the weekend.
Yeah, the leap is fantastic.
Hangs there for a second or two.
And it's wonderful to see. And, I love this Everton side. I think it's great fun. And, they've gone and bought another centre-half, which is annoying because it means they might be good at that end as well and not be quite so much fun. But they are great. And Calvert-Lewin really has been a massive surprise and really pushing, I think, to get into that England team, not just in the squad, but in the team.
Yeah, I'm like you. I thought he might be one of those players who has a good 6 months or maybe season and then ends up going on loan somewhere and playing a bit further down. But he's been unbelievable, and I'm delighted that he's proved us all wrong.
Yeah,
let's stay in Liverpool and let's go to their rivals. Number 3, we've got, as surprise of the season, the sloppiness of Liverpool. Is it called sloppiness anymore, or is it just called just being appalling?
Well,
only one game, of course.
Sloppy, obviously, because that's what Roy Keane said last week, and Jurgen Klopp bit his head off for it. And and Keane apologised and sort of backtracked, but actually, he was right, because what we have seen from Liverpool, even before this absolutely ridiculous shellacking from Aston Villa, is they have looked very vulnerable. They've won the games. That game against Leeds, you can say all you like about Leeds scoring from every shot on target, but they did make defensive mistakes in that game. And then they obviously Chelsea was an easy game. Now we see why. Chelsea not great side. Arsenal could have been different, couldn't it? Lacazette scores that chance, and that's a draw at least. But against Aston Villa, they were awful. But this has kind of been coming. We Project Restart was not good for Liverpool, and we kind of thought that it was because they didn't really need to be great, and they were saving themselves and conserving themselves a little bit. Actually, that sloppiness that came in during the summer, which looked excusable at the time, actually looks a massive problem now. They've got a centre-half problem now, which seems mad, but they do, because they've got Joe Gomez, looks a shadow of the player he was. He's like his confidence is absolutely shot. And you've got your other options of Matip, who's obviously struggles with his fitness, And beyond that, you've got nothing really.
Yeah,
They're relying on three centre halves, and plus Fabinho filling in there. Fabinho looked great against Chelsea, didn't he? But he's not the answer forever. You would have thought. And then everything starts going a little bit wrong. Then you start looking at Van Dijk, don't you? And everybody starts looking at him a little bit closer and says, "Oh, wait a minute, there's a couple of mistakes here, and he's not doing what he should do, or he's quite static."
Well, the last 2 seasons with Van Dijk, it felt like you could
put the big guy, get it,
Yeah, the last 2 seasons with Van Dijk, it felt like you could have just any footballer could play alongside him, and he'd be great because by virtue of playing next to Van Dijk. But like you say, the last few months, just after lockdown, he seems to have. Something's happened. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's complacency or what. But getting back to that level seems to be hard.
It's one of those things, isn't it? I think if he's so brilliant, then you lose. It's so reliant on him being absolutely flawless. And if he loses 5%, it feels like the whole team loses 20%. It's like that knock-on effect. It's almost like they look to him to be so, sure of himself. Obviously, it's not helped if they've not because they didn't have Alisson at the weekend. Adrian is nowhere near the keeper he is. No. Would they have lost 7-2? Probably not. Would they have still lost? Yeah, you would think so, because it was poor enough all over the park. And Liverpool have just been that little bit off the pace. And, last week, everybody crowned them as title winners. I still think they will win the title. I do think that this is going to be a mental season, and no one's going to get anywhere near the points totals that we've seen in the last 2 years. There's going to be a little bit of a levelling off. This mad old season with no crowds and everything that's happening around it. He's going to create a far more level playing field, I think. But they are going to win. I think they will win the title, but certainly not at the march that some people.
Not the same way as last season. Yeah.
No.
Okay, let's move on. Number 2, but the team that did this to Liverpool, Aston Villa. Aston Villa is, as a surprise of the season, has been brilliant to watch, beautiful to watch.
I must say, I absolutely did not see this coming. They were amongst my picks for relegation, and I quite happily put my hands up and say I cocked up there. Because they should have been better last season. They spent a lot of money, and they shouldn't have been in a relegation battle. Really, I mean, they could celebrate at the end of the season that they stayed up. But if at the start of the season they were shouting for mid-table place, much like sort of Leeds are this season. So it was a massive disappointment. They weren't great for great swathes of last season, and certainly their massive over-reliance on Jack Grealish. Had a brilliant summer. What a fantastic summer in terms of transfers. Bringing in Ollie Watkins takes off the goal pressure off Grealish.
Yeah.
Bringing in Ryan Bertrand. What am I talking about? Ross Barkley. Bringing Ross Barkley takes that creativity pressure off him. Then you've got Bertrand Traore to come in on the right hand side as well for that bit of pace. Matty Cash coming in at right back. John McGinn coming back. They've done such good business, really good business. I think the one weakness is probably still at centre half. I think they're lacking a bit of cover there. I'm not convinced that Tyrone Mings is really the answer there, but it's great to see, isn't it? It's a little bit like we're all going back to the 90s when Aston Villa and Everton were part of this big five.
Get Big Ron back in.
It's fantastic to see. Those of us who are a certain age who grew up with these teams being really great football clubs.
Absolutely.
It's lovely to see it back.
Proper clubs, Sarah.
Proper.
Right, it leads us all to the number 1 for this week, and these are a proper club, I think, or they used to be, certainly. Number 1 surprise for this week is Man United being this bad.
This bad, and I mean we can. This is all about the this bad, isn't it? Because I didn't think they were going to be any good, and certainly not after making any transfers this summer, apart from the one that they didn't really need. I didn't think they were going to be great. Certainly didn't think they were going to be in a title challenge. Thought that they would, but certainly thought they would be top 4, kind of nailed on, just because of the way that they played in Project Restart, or certainly since January. But my God, they are awful, aren't they?
What's happened, Sarah? What's happened to them?
Awful. Well, there's many tiers to this, aren't there? I mean, people are split, aren't they, on who's to blame for this? Is it the board for not delivering transfers? Is it the manager? Is it the players? Of course, the non-exciting truth is it's all a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of
perfect storm.
Perfect storm. This is a club that's not been run very well in terms of transfers. They're obviously not getting anything done. And do they want to get anything done? Really, is the question. They obviously didn't want to spend that kind of money on Jadon Sancho. Never, spent all summer saying they would get him or might get him or were going to go for him. Never actually even made a serious offer, which seems absolutely mad, doesn't it? But they obviously spent so much on Harry Maguire last summer, and I think I've got a bit of a theory that they spent that money and then they kind of went, well, we can't spend on another centre half, and I think that's what they thought that was their Van Dijk. They thought that was their signing that would fix the defence.
Well, he was good last season, though, wasn't he? I think you would admit that he shored them up last season.
He wasn't anything like Van Dijk.
Oh no!
For the kind of price they paid, I think they thought that was a fix. In the same way that Van Dijk was a fix for Liverpool, that they immediately became much better and he improved all the players around them. I think that's what they thought they were buying with Maguire. And I think they kind of looked at it and thought, well, we spend on Maguire this summer, then we sort the defence, and then next year we'll do whatever. And it's almost like the plan hasn't changed, despite the fact that clearly they do need other centre halves, and they need other players. And then there's there is the Solskjaer question. There's no doubt that he has been dealt a bad hand by that. By the United board and the way that they operate in transfers, but he has played that bad hand so badly. There's absolutely no argument that a better manager would have done a better job. Absolutely no doubt about that. It doesn't all land at his feet, but a lot of it has to land at his feet because he's not good enough. He's nowhere near good enough for that club. As we've said before, there is not a club in the Premier League who would take Ole Gunnar Solskjaer above their own manager at the moment, apart from barring possibly Fulham. And that would be possibly the one thing about that. Now that is mad. It is mad that the biggest club in the world, and we keep being told the biggest club in the world, have a manager that no other team in the Premier League, barring possibly the very worst of them, would take their manager as their manager. And that is a sad state of affairs, to be honest.
Sarah, I'm going to have to ask you to stop this now because there's going to be plenty of weeks and months from which you can stick the boot in more to United. But that is pretty much all we've got time for this week. Thank you for joining me, Sarah Winterburn. Thank you guys at home for watching. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us. It's theeditor@football365.com. Until this time next week, goodbye.